Hey y'all, welcome to Restless Chipotle Kitchen. Well, it has been cold and icy and snowy and icky in Texas this week, and it's soup season, and so today I decided to share one of my favorite soups. This takes about 20 minutes from start to finish, and best of all, it's all made in one pot. We're going to need about 1 pound of lean ground beef. Now, I think I've got 1.5 pounds here, so I'm going to use it because I need to use it up. But between 1 pound, 1.5 pounds, 3/4 pound, it's just not that deep, y'all. There's a lot of ways to do it, and if you're a little short on the ground beef, or you've got a little more ground beef and some needs to be used up, go ahead and put it in there, no problem. That's the great thing about soup. We're going to need some Parmesan cheese that's been grated, and this isn't the stuff that's on the store shelf. This is the stuff in the refrigerated section that's actually really Parmesan cheese, so do try to get that. We're going to need some spinach, and one of the things about this soup that's so great is it's a great place to hide vegetables if your family is fussy about eating vegetables. Spinach goes in it. If you absolutely hate it, you don't have to put it in there. You can put mushrooms in here, you could put onions in here, you could put bell peppers in here. Tons of ways to do it, but I like the spinach in here. We're going to need a cup of heavy whipping cream or heavy cream, and a 25-ounce jar of pasta sauce. Now, if your pasta sauce comes in a 22-ounce jar or a 28-ounce jar, that's just fine, okay? I usually use the arrabbiata pasta sauce because it's got some spice to it. Today I'm using a 4-cheese pasta sauce. Whatever your favorite is fine. We're gonna need cheese ravioli, but if you like beef ravioli, or if you have a different type of ravioli, butternut squash or chicken and artichoke or whatever you happen to have, feel free to use that. Also, if you have tortellini, that's great in here too. If you get the small, tiny little raviolis, which these aren't the big ones, but they're not the little ones either, you can get some really kind of small ones. Those fit in the spoon much better than the, great big ones. And then last, we're gonna need some chicken broth or chicken stock. I prefer chicken stock, but when I looked in my pantry, I just had bone broth, so that's what we're using today. You're gonna want a big stock pot, and we're gonna cook the ground beef right in this pot. Because of that, it is very important to get a lean ground beef, 90-10, 95-5, 97-3, one of those. The reason is that if you get, say, an 85-15 or an 80-20, you're gonna have a lot of fat in the pan, and it's gonna be in your soup, and it's gonna taste very greasy. So stick with the lean ground beef for this, okay? Plus, here is the thing. Lean ground beef is actually more for your money than the very fatty ground beef. I know that an 80-15 ground beef might be $1.50 or $2 a pound less than, say, a 95-5 or a 97-3, but you get so much more protein and meat in that ground beef than you do in the fattier cuts of ground beef. It's actually more cost efficient, so do keep that in mind. Because this doesn't have a lot of fat in it, I'm going to spray the pan with some no-stick cooking spray, and then I'm just going to put the whole thing of ground beef in there, and I'm going to put that on the stove and brown it until it's completely browned, and then I'll be back. While that ground beef is browning on the stove, I'm going to take this spinach, and I am just going to give it a quick little chop so that it's in smaller pieces. That way it's going to cook faster, and it's going to be smaller, and people that don't like spinach aren't necessarily going to notice it's spinach. At least, I hope so, because I do have some spinach haters in my house, but all of them like this soup, so there's that. And so we're just going to cut it, roll it over and cut it in strips. And you don't have to put, all of it in there. you can put half of it or part of it, or you can put more in there if you guys really like spinach. That's about 2 cups. The recipe calls for 6 cups. And that's about, I want to say it's about a pound of baby spinach, fresh baby spinach. I wouldn't use frozen spinach in this because I don't think it tastes quite as good as fresh. But, you know, you can try it and see what you think. I don't know about you, but my house gets really busy, and working at home is frustrating when you've got so many people running in and out of the kitchen, of, you know, whatever room you happen to be in. It is crazy around here sometimes. And now my husband works at home too, and all of my kids are adults, so they go to work, but they go to work at different times. I have kids that work nights, I have kids that work days, I have a kiddo that's starting his own business, and he's a personal trainer, and so he works whenever he has clients. It's nuts around here sometimes. I kind of miss when they were little, but this is kind of fun too. It's just, I need to get over the fact that I really want to have my own schedule, and nobody seems to want to comply with that. All right, so we've got the spinach, it's all cut up, and really this is the only prep work that we're going to have to do for this soup. The rest of it is just adding ingredients, okay? So I'm going to finish cooking the ground beef, and then I'll be back. Blah. All right, I'm starting to get some afternoon shadows. While you're cooking the ground beef, be sure and break it up so that it's not in big chunks, it's kind of in small pieces, all right? Just break it up like that, and then cook it all the way. Now, if you happen to have any grease on this after it's cooked, go ahead and drain that. I don't, and so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the pasta sauce. And as you know, if you've been here a while, I always put a little bit of water in the jar just to get all of that good flavor out. And then I'm going to add 4 cups of chicken stock. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring this to a boil, and then we're going to let the ravioli cook in this stock so that the pasta soaks up all of the flavor from the stock. But we're going to bring this to a boil, and then I'll be right back. So I moved over to the stove, which is a little harder to video from and a lot harder on my phone. But I wanted to, there's really no point in me carrying the pan back and forth just to show you how the stuff goes in there. You want the soup to come to a full boil. And once that happens, which it looks like it just about is, we're going to pour in the ravioli. Now, I'm using frozen ravioli. I think it holds up better in this particular situation than fresh ravioli. But if you want to use fresh, go ahead. You just won't need to cook it as long, okay? So I'm going to put the ravioli in there, and we're going to stir it. And then we're going to simmer that ravioli for about 10 minutes until it is tender. Depending on the size of the ravioli and the brand, that can change. So be sure to look at the instructions on the ravioli that you buy, that brand, and cook it according to their instructions. Maybe that's 5 minutes, maybe that's 10 minutes, maybe that's 15 minutes. You don't want it to be overcooked, because once we add the spinach and the cream, we're gonna want to cook it just a little bit longer, and you don't want it to be all like overcooked and mushy. While it's cooking, just give it a good stir every once in a while, very gently. Make sure that none sticks to the bottom. You know the drill. And just let it go. The ravioli has all kind of floated to the top, and I checked it, and it is just about done. So that means that it's just about time to put in the spinach. Now we're just going to put in the spinach, and that's going to cook for about 2 to 3 minutes, just until it's wilty. You don't want it to be overcooked because you know spinach gets slimy when it gets overcooked, and that's no good. So we're just going to turn this down to a simmer, and then just let that spinach wilt a little bit so it stays nice and fresh and green, but it's still you know, it doesn't get overcooked. So this is also when I like to check it for flavor. That spinach is just about done. Before I put the cream in, I want to check it to see if it needs some salt, or if maybe I need to put a little garlic salt in there, or if I need to adjust the flavor in any way. That's really good, but I think it could stand a little bit more salt. So we're just going to put a little bit of salt in there, and then I'm going to spill it all over the kitchen because, you know, that's what I do with salt. Try it again. Yeah, that's good stuff. Okay. All right, now it's time to add the heavy cream. And we're just gonna slowly pour that in while we're stirring. The heavy cream gives texture and actually helps support the flavor of the soup because the fat, you know, carries flavor and intensifies flavor. So we're just going to pour it in really slow. We don't want it to curdle, we don't want it to boil, and we don't want the soup to cool off too much. And then we're just going to bring it back up to temperature, to a little simmer, and then we're going to finish it off with some Parmesan cheese. Once you put the heavy cream in, go ahead and test it again. I really like testing stuff because, you know, it's good. And the last thing to go in our soup is half a cup of Parmesan cheese, the grated Parmesan cheese. And try to break up the lumps that might be in there before you pour it in the soup, because sometimes they'll all melt together and you'll just have a big lump of Parmesan in there like that one. We don't want that. And also it's not pretty. Okay, got that. And then one more time, we get a clean spoon and check for salt and pepper. That's delicious. And that's it. Our soup is done. Now here's my favorite part, and I'm willing to bet it's going to be your favorite part too. And that is ladling all of this amazing, delicious soup into the bowl. Sometimes you'll find that depending on the pasta sauce that you use, the soup will be more or less tomatoey. And so you'll just have to try different kinds of pasta sauce to see what you like best. So creamy. Look at that. Meat and pasta, spinach, all in this delicious tomato broth. Doesn't that look good? Now, for the last thing and the very final touch, we are going to put some Parmesan cheese right on top before we serve it. If y'all remember, last week I shared how to make one of those bread bowls like you can get at Panera. Well, this soup is amazing in one of those bowls. You should try it out. I'm going to link to it above in just a few minutes. But here's our soup. It's so delicious. It's so creamy. And if you love ravioli, there's so much of that in there. It's just a hearty, creamy comfort food meal that's 20 minutes. It takes 20 minutes, and you've got to love a recipe like that. I sure do. All right, I will talk to y'all next week. Don't forget to come back. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a thumbs up and a nice comment. And I'll see y'all next week, okay? Love y'all. Bye-bye.